year of action with or without the help of Congress. So will he act on immigration? That's today's topic for our agenda panel. Joining me now, MSNBC contributor and president and CEO of Voto Latino, Maria Teresa Kumar, MSNBC.com political reporter Benji Starlin, and Huffington Post reporter Sabrina Siddiqui. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, Benji, let me start with you because your latest article is titled Obama Subtle Immigration Warning. What's the subtle warning?
Well, Obama's taking a bit of a carrot and a stick approach on immigration. The carrot is that he's been saying these principles that the House Republicans have put out, they look very nice. I definitely can work with you on this. But on the other hand, he's leaving this door open to executive action. He's been hinting recently in interviews that should Congress fail to act on immigration, there may be some options available to him that he can take as president. And the one that Republicans are very worried about is that he might slow or halt deportations for large groups of undocumented immigrants. He's already done this for dreamers or young undocumented immigrants. And they're concerned that he might issue a similar waiver because he's been facing significant pressure from immigration activists to do so. So there is this kind of implication, yes, I'm willing to be patient and work with you, but just so you know, if things get off the rails in Congress, there may be options.
Okay, Sabrina, I want to bring you in because you say Republicans kept the language of their immigration principles pretty vague. Why is that?
Well, I think that they wanted to give themselves room to kind of work with both sides and negotiate. They don't want to be too specific because you do have that right flank that is opposed to really any immigration reform altogether. So they have to be very cautious about what language they use right now. My sense, at least from the White House, is that they're going to wait and watch. They want to give Republicans space, give them the breathing room to sort out those deep divisions within their own party. And they don't want President Obama to kind of step in and jeopardize the prospects for reform by saying something that might enrage Republicans and cause them to walk away from the process altogether. I would not anticipate that the president will be particularly confrontational in the immediate future. He's not going to, for example, go on a full-scale campaign where Republicans might feel like they're under attack and they're being blamed. I think he does want to give House GOP leadership room to work with their own conference, and then if they fail to act or if they try to delay the issue into next year, that's where you might see the president step back in, escalate public pressure, and possibly weigh some executive action.
Maria Teresa, what about the timing? Something done. How does timing factor into all of this?
I think, Betty, what we're going to see is that they have now principles, but they need to put a little more meat on the bones to figure out whether or not immigration groups are going to go with them and whether the Republican Party, the extreme right, is going to go with them. So what I keep hearing from the Hill is that Boehner's not going to put it up for a vote until after the majority of the Republican primaries. That way, individual Republicans that would like to vote for immigration reform, which is the vast majority of them, would like to vote for immigration reform. They don't have fear that someone's going to run against them on the extreme right. So it's more of a wait and see. I think it's going to be something that's going to come up in the spring, but if it's going to have to look at the details. And again, they keep pressing on this idea of immigration enforcement first. Folks keep forgetting that President Obama is the largest deportation president in our history. So it's not a matter, and Cantor this weekend, for example, said that he's not sure if they can trust the president because of his, because of immigration reform and his inability to secure the border. If anything, the border has never been more secure under this presidency. So it's more of, do the Republicans actually want to do action and actually want, come midterms, win the Latino vote?
Well, lawmakers are talking. Benji, I want you to take a listen to what Congressman Paul Ryan is saying.
Here's the issue that all Republicans agree on. We don't trust the president to enforce the law. This is not a trust but verify. This is a verify then trust approach.
Bottom line, can you put something on the president's desk this year that he can sign?
I really don't know the answer to that question. That is clearly in doubt.
All right, so you heard it right there. You heard him say Republicans agree on one thing. They don't trust the president. Benji, what is it going to take for Republicans to agree on immigration, and is that even possible?
Well, I've been talking to House Republicans the last week about this, and they all seem to agree, whichever side of the angle they're on, whether they're pro-immigration reform, anti-immigration reform, this is the biggest obstacle to getting it done. They just don't like President Obama, and they don't trust him to carry out what they pass. Immigration supporters like Congressman Mario Diaz-Balart, who's one of the most pro-immigration Republicans, told me that he thinks this can be overcome. The key is just to put so many constraints in the legislation itself that it's impossible for any president to go around it. But a lot of Democrats are very skeptical about this talk. It's possible they're just trying to angle to get something specific in legislation, or it's possible this is a kind of preemptive excuse for when they don't pass something, to say, well, we agree in theory with immigration reform, but what can you do? We disagree with President Obama on health care. So it's a question of whether this is a good faith argument that can be overcome or more of spin.
There is more talk going on because, Sabrina, here's House Majority Leader Eric Cantor.
The president has got to demonstrate, frankly, the country and the Congress can trust him in implementing the laws. Look what he's done with Obamacare. He has selectively enforced that law.
Sabrina, what are you hearing about the White House's approach, and how will that play into the trust issue that we've been talking about?
Well, as I said earlier, they're not going to be particularly confrontational. And Jay Carney, in fact, last week, when he was asked about the principles, called them a step in the right direction. He didn't want to prejudge any sort of legislation that doesn't really exist at this point. And you'll remember in the State of the Union address, even though it was about a year of action and the president did hint at using executive authority on the issue of immigration, he was much more conciliatory. He didn't really make any declarations about Republicans or make it too partisan. He only actually mentioned immigration 3 times in a speech that spanned 7,000 words. So I think he's being extremely cautious. He knows that congressional Republicans don't trust him, and it's very likely that that's not going to change. But he wants to get House Republicans in a position where they have a deal they can broker with Democrats, a deal that's workable for Democrats so that at least Nancy Pelosi can deliver the majority of her caucus, and then they can possibly get something back to the Senate.
But Maria Teresa, it's not just Republicans trying to find consensus on immigration. I mean, you say we see splintering among immigrant rights advocates, correct?
Especially, yes, absolutely. Especially, and you're starting to hear those rumblings. And that the sticking point is whether or not the Republicans provide a pathway to citizenship, at least legal residency. Right now, what you see with their principles is that they want to provide an opportunity for folks to get working permits, but that doesn't mean that that the green card is even on the table. So what you're going to find already is that you have a lot of individuals in the immigrant rights community, specifically the young dreamers, saying, look, what we want is a safe haven for our parents to come out of the shadows, whereas older immigrant groups are saying that's just not enough. And this is a really miscalculation on the Republican Party. If the reason that they're putting immigration reform on the table is because they want the Latino vote, what they have to realize that the reason that the Latino vote has galvanized around the Democrats is not just because of immigration reform, the lack thereof, but it's because of the tone of immigration. The idea that you have the majority of Americans today that believe that the majority of Latinos are undocumented, when in fact over 80% of them are, 60% of them are U.S. born, really says that the Republican Party doesn't know who the constituency is. And one of the best ways for them to basically clear this hurdle is to put immigration reform on the table with a pathway to citizenship so that American-born Latinos feel that they too are American, are embraced completely. And that's, I think, the challenge that no one has really talked about in the nuance when it comes to immigration reform.
Great discussion today, everybody. Thank you for joining us, Maria Teresa Kumar, Benji Starlin, and Sabrina Siddiqui.